Hello and welcome back to the Popcorn for Dinner podcast. And welcome to Palm Coast Sprinklers, watering your world since 1978. Today, we'll be talking about the penultimate episode of Better Call Saul, written and directed by Vince Gilligan. And joining me on this journey, he's still here. He hasn't been scared off by the content we've been receiving the last couple of weeks. Joining me on this journey to Florida, he now has to return his girlfriend's exercise bike. It's Ebube! How are you doing, Ebube?
I'm good. I didn't think I'd be going back to Florida like this, but I guess here we are. Here we are.
This show managed to make the sunniest part of America look depressing and drab, and I love this show for that. Well, not drab. Definitely not drab. Depressing. Depressing and monotonous.
And yet lively somehow.
And I love this show for that. We're going to go straight into Saul. But before I do that, obviously I have to tell you guys what we're doing on the podcast. So this isn't only a Better Call Saul feed, guys. Like, we're talking about other stuff. We're talking about industry right now. If you're listening to this right now, you watch industry, check out industry after listening to this. If you don't watch industry, please watch industry, because like the second episode just came out this week and I think it's one of the best episodes of the year. In my opinion, one of the best TV episodes of the year. We really love the episode. I think industry might be cooking something this season. So I really think you guys should check out industry. The first season is like 8 episodes. It's like you can do that and catch up in time for season 2. As always, please, if you're listening and you know anyone that likes either industry or Saul or whatever, please share the podcast with them. Also, please share this podcast from like Spotify. That really helps us. Like just share it to Twitter or whatever. But yeah, please rate and review and all that jazz. Okay, Ebube, this is going to be quick. I don't think we've gone into an episode this quick before. This is like 2 minutes in. We're talking about Saul, season 6, episode 12, titled Waterworks, written and directed by Vince Gilligan, who, if you listen to this episode, you know he's the creator of this universe, the creator of the Breaking Bad Albuquerque universe. Let's talk about the feel-good show of the summer, man. Everyone's having a great time. Everyone's happy. Hey, do you remember Sleeping Jimmy? I miss that guy. I want that guy back.
I vaguely remember him. At least that guy, when he was conning people, he was having fun.
I miss that guy. I miss Sleeping Jimmy. Okay, so I'd like to start with Kim, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, please.
And then we can walk our way towards the worst phone call ever. I don't think there's been a phone call with this dire amount of repercussions. Oh my God, everyone's just...
So many different emotions coming out from all sides of that call. Yeah, so which part is burning a hole in your mind the most?
Well, even before the call, we get to see Kim for the first time since 2 episodes, I think. Or was it 9? It was 9, so since 10, 11, 12, I think. Wow. It's been a while since we saw Kim. And I think just before anything else, what immediately struck me about Kim, I don't know how to even interpret this, but just how indecisive she was. Now, I'm not sure if it was an act that she was putting on just to maintain her quote-unquote cover or whatever, but just like, it was very interesting to me that she didn't make decisions. Either it's like the Mayo or Miracle Whip argument, or whether they could do Amazing Race, or like their receptionist's favorite ice cream. She just was like, whatever you say. Like, she was just like very differential. And I just found that very interesting, because that's obviously so unlike Kim. Kim is like, ponytailed Kim is like making a decision. She's doing everything. So that was the first thing I was like, oh, this is very interesting. What did you think of Florida Kim?
I think Florida Kim is afraid of herself. You know, I think based on everything that happened before, she's like, when I'm good at making decisions, but I let myself go too far. And when I make decisions, people get hurt. So much that now she's running on so much autopilot that she's not in control of anything and doesn't even want to be in control. Like, she just looks happy to be living a life that's meh.
Mm-hmm.
And then the one big decision she has to make in the episode, or at least in the earlier half, is whether or not to take Saul's call, because she immediately knows who Victor is, right?
Yeah.
And she decides to take that call. She feels what she thought she'd feel and more. But then it suddenly, makes her have a bit of a reckoning, which I think is interesting. It's sort of cool to see that like a switch can be flipped just like that, and she becomes Kim Wexler, attorney at law again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, her face was different when she went back to New Mexico. Everything had changed. I was even expecting to see that district attorney lady. I wasn't expecting to see bald guy because he's on the other side now.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it was interesting to see that. I did not necessarily expect her to go to Howard's wife. That was interesting.
When I saw Cheryl, I was like, oh, Kim,
Yeah,
what you about to
exactly.
do? Kim, what you about to
Exactly.
do?
And she wrote the entire thing in an affidavit. She didn't just come to talk. Like she submitted it to the law first.
I mean,
then
it's
she
like
came
you
to tell her
said.
as a courtesy.
Yeah, it's like you said, Kim Wexler, attorney at law. Like that was probably the first time she got to have some kind of like professional pride in terms of law for a very long time. And like, let's not put down Florida Kim too much though, because yeah, she was on autopilot, but you could still see Doc Review Kim doing those
100%.
notes. She was doing her job.
Yeah.
She was going
When
to the
she was,
site,
like,
to go to the
editing-
factory. I was like, oh, okay.
Even the creativity of like using Miracle Whip, which Miracle Whip is one of those things they sell in America that you're just like, what actually is this?
Yeah, that's something I guess I have no idea about.
Maybe I should eat it, maybe I shouldn't, but hey, it actually tastes okay.
So does it like taste like mayo?
Funny.
Like is it like
It's
salad
kind of-
cream? Like what is it?
I'm the kind of guy to avoid potato salad, honestly, but she like
Especially in Florida.
like
Wait, I'm sorry, can we first of all, potato salad in Florida, I feel like in 2 hours it's bad. It's like you cannot eat that. Like what was going on there? That's such a bad idea.
I think it depends on where you are, but it is like a popular like gathering dish. I'm just not a fan of the taste, but I know people love it. I think Miracle Whip has basically the same texture. It's going to be like a little bit sweeter than mayonnaise, a little less thick probably. But I think it is just a substitute. Like it does the same thing. I like how Florida Kim is actually a little bit happy. You know, there's a thing to be said for like, you know, people who are content living a quiet life. You know, they want to not necessarily be the richest. They don't want to be the quote unquote most successful. They just want to have everything they need and move on. She has her own house. It's not as if she's married to that guy. You know, he comes and goes. She's all right with having him there when he's there. She has friends at work. She's singing happy birthday. Even if she's singing it like a drone, she's singing it, right? And, you know, she has a little bit of a community. I think these days the world kind of teaches us to, you know, want more. Like all those like entrepreneur people on Instagram that are telling you,
I don't know.
Yeah, you know, you have to jump on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she's kind of like, I mean, granted, this is before the time of those guys, but those guys existed in some form back then too. So I'm just glad that she's content. So the fact that she chooses to break that contentment shows that like she's still willing to reckon. And that's, you know, I've said it many times here that like Saul and Jimmy are different people. So like in this case, I'm talking about Jimmy. Jimmy is different from Kim in the sense that his response is to run and to not confront.
Yeah.
Whereas Kim's response usually is to have a bit of a reckoning. Like she'll confront what's going on. She'll make some type of decision. Even if that decision is to run, at the very least, it will be as a result of making that confrontation with herself and with the situation. When Jimmy runs, it's because he's running from the decision to be made in the first place.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
she's made of...
And things end up having to catch up with him.
Yeah, she's made of sterner stuff, isn't she?
She definitely is. Yeah, she can even keep... The fact that she can keep her name in the future.
That was very interesting to me. But I guess I was thinking about it, I was like, she's scot-free. There's no, like, crime against
there's nothing
her.
on her.
So I agree with you, but I also disagree regarding Kim. Because I think she's content. But I don't think Kim Wexler would be content with that life. I think she's made herself content. Like she's forced herself to be. It's almost like she's punishing herself. Like, okay, this is what you're going to be happy with. I don't think the Kim Wexler that we met in Better Call Saul prior to this season, like prior to everything that happened with Howard, would never have been happy with the life she has in Florida.
Yeah, of course. Because she's, like I said, she's afraid of herself. And I agree with you. It is some type of punishment. She's like, this is what I deserve now. Yeah. This is the best thing for me now.
So yeah, exactly, yeah.
Even if it's less about punishing herself, on some level, it's more about protecting people from her tendencies. And she knows that she won't have tendencies if she's as far away from Jimmy McGill as possible.
So the first step
was to distance herself from him.
Yeah, which to be fair is kind of what Gene was doing a few weeks before he was spotted by the cabbie.
Oh, Jeff.
Jeff, we'll get to Jeff. But yeah, no, I do like this idea of like her kind of been in kind of self-penance. And then when that conversation, that dreaded phone call with Jean, he kind of goads her, but also kind of like, I don't know, calls her out on her bullshit or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, if you have such a guilty conscience, why don't you go confess? Why are you telling me to confess and whatever? And then
You shouldn't have done that.
she does it. Like, she goes all the time. She's like, and she does the ultimate penance. And look, Rhea Seehorn got her first Emmy nomination for Better Call Saul, right? 6 years too late for the first half.
Right.
Thank
God.
I don't see a world in which she doesn't get nominated for the second half again. So hopefully 2 nominations.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this definitely played a part into their release schedule, whatever. And I think hopefully it works out because Emmy voting is happening right now and people are watching this happen. So hopefully it works for both her and Bob because Bob too needs to, I don't understand how. Better Call Saul has never won an Emmy. Not one.
And that's so crazy, isn't it? They give so many to Breaking Bad.
But at this episode, she just kept on having great scene after great scene. Like, it starts with that phone call. I'm like, oh, this is just incredible from Rhea Seehorn, but we already know she does incredible stuff. Then the thing with Cheryl, I'm like, oh my God. Then the boss scene, which I was just like, the boss scene would just stay on her face for like maybe 4 minutes. Just unbroken. Like I'm just like...
The boss, I was literally saying out loud, oh God. Oh God, like, and then eventually she says, oh God, and starts sobbing. And I'm like, what is going on?
The way she breaks down, like, the first time I watched it, I was actually more focused on the directing of that scene.
Mm-hmm.
You're just like, oh, this Vince Gilligan's camera is not leaving this spot. He's just going to stay on this.
I was thinking about that too. That was a good choice.
And then this, because you get to watch her, which obviously helps her perform, because you get to watch her break down, like, literally in real time. Second time I watched it, I was like, oh, you can see her, like, trying to stop herself. She's wiping a tear. She's doing that thing because she doesn't want to cry in public. And then it just floods. And I've seen some people refer to it as like the crying that she should have done for the last 6 years of the show. Like 6 seasons worth of crying. She never cried after Howard died. Like she didn't do it. Like she screamed all that. But like, this is just
she's actually finally processing.
She can't control it. There is no next. This is going straight to the airport. There's no next stop to get off and cry everything. She's going to cry like that all the way to the airport. So it's just, and then she obviously has that kind of coda of a scene with, well, I mean, before that is the scene in Saul's office, which we'll get to Saul, trust me. We'll talk about all 3 of them, Saul, Jimmy, Jean, trust me. But there's that whole thing where I think she's probably seen Saul's office for the first time, right? Last time she was in there was probably when they won the case against Howard and they were having sex on that couch. That was the last time she was in that office.
And it looked like,
an office.
Less tacky.
Yeah. And now it looks like a clown show. So like, she's seen all that. She's seen him with his more colorful suits. He's wearing his feet are up on the table. He has his socks on. Everything. She's like, yeah, this is not
Bluetooth
like who I know. Exactly. And then she sees Jesse Pinkman at the end, which is again another cameo I just loved. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't expect to see him there, but once I saw him in distance, like even if you doubted who he was, once you heard the "Hey yo," hey yo, can I bump one of those?
I think
we're seeing the character.
I think we're seeing Walt next week.
That would be good
because Brian Cranston had said that there were 3 scenes with them. There was 1 scene with Walt, 1 scene with Jesse, and 1 scene with both of them, right? But after last week's episode, I thought maybe they ended up cutting those 2 singular scenes. But now that Jesse has appeared in this one, I'm assuming Walt will appear with Saul next week.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I mean, and then what does she say at the end? She was like, he asks her, is this guy good? Are you a good lawyer? And she's like, yeah, he was good when I knew him, right? And
good response.
And yeah, like, I mean, do you think we're going to see Kim again next week? Just like, do you have any idea?
I think it's possible, yeah, because everything is wrapping up now. Because if we don't, then the last time we see her will be like with the crying on the bus. At least the last time chronologically that we would see what has happened to her. So I mean, I think they might want to let us know if they do bring up charges and if they pursue it, if the district attorney files anything, because now they might, since a certain someone just couldn't leave well enough alone, and they might actually come looking for him now. So
yeah, well,
if they have something to get him on, then they could get both of them on everything. If Howard's wife decides to sue.
Yeah, she can sue in civil court, but like Kim was way out of Saul's life before he got involved into like the cartel.
Yeah,
so she can't be involved in any of that.
100%, but like if they then add what happened with Howard, then it could be a bunch of things because they would technically be accessories to murder. right?
Yeah.
Even though they don't know where the body is
Under
buried, so
duress, they could argue. I mean,
they could argue
yeah.
for duress, but housewife could still sue in civil courts, which would be
Oh yeah, definitely.
at least for Kim, which could be a bunch of different things. Yeah, it's just a lot, but I think we might see her again. It's just one more episode, so
I actually have no idea either way, but like, obviously, I would obviously love to see more Rhea Seehorn, but I think if this is the last we see of her, I think everything worked. I think seeing her crying on the bus as the last time we ever see her is actually a good thing, or not a good thing, but a good. And actually, before we even go to Jean, let's use her a bit, because I've kind of thrown this out a few times during our last few episodes, and we'll talk about it more next week when we know how this story wraps up. But it's like, it's the Breaking Bad Breaking Bad universe stands on morality, right? Like, how do they
yes,
reward morality? What do they think is moral? And I think we'll definitely discuss it next week when we know what happens with Jean and probably what happens with Kim. But I think this episode, especially if it's in Kim's last episode, it paints her as she was bad, but she was nowhere as bad as what these guys got up to in Breaking Bad.
I'd say so. Yeah,
Right? She's not a saint, and she probably deserves some kind of punishment, whether it's legal or not. But in a way, like, she gets this opportunity to live a fairly normal, very mundane, especially boring life, which is free from the law. So to some people, that could be a getaway, or it could be a bit of, it is not even, it could be, it's definitely a bit of punishment in itself, right? And she has to live with the knowledge of paying out people she hurt and the lives that got lost.
uneventfully mulling over everything
Exactly.
she's ever done.
And now that's better than what Walter White got. That's better than what Saul will most likely get. Better than even Mike and Jesse, who were probably I think Jesse, Mike.
Jesse was like the heart of the show, and Mike had like a moral code.
Yeah, and then obviously you could include Nacho with that. I think Mike was a lot more proactive than perhaps Jesse and Nacho in terms of just like their involvement in the whole business and everything. But you have Jesse, who kind of got away, right? At the end of El Camino. He suffers. Trust me, you haven't watched El Camino, but he suffers. Jesse Plemons puts him through 3 ringers in that movie, right? So we know that he suffered when he was a slave to the racists. But he does get to live a life, whatever a life could be, right? He does get to live a life in Alaska, as opposed to obviously Walter dying or Mike dying and everything. And I think the show is like, look, we don't want to like let Kim get off scot-free because she's not a good person. Back to what I said last week about the fans maybe not understanding that Walter White was the villain. like this show is like, Saul is terrible, but also Kim is kind of bad. And what is the equivalent punishment for someone that is kind of bad? And I think
kind of bad, yeah.
I think what we've got might be it. I mean, we'll talk about it next week, depending on what happens in the next episode. But yeah, what I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about like what the Breaking Bad universe says about morality and how it punishes morality before, obviously, based on what we have so far?
I think it likes to show us that actions have consequences, and it's just all these little details, these people love their details, and we love to watch them love their details, and just it reflects in just the very fiber of the show, from the way they like to show us how things became what they are gradually. Like, they like to reward that patience. They kind of like to put that in the narratives as well. Like, everything sort of has this sense of, if you keep following this path, it's going to lead somewhere. And you have to be okay with where it leads because you're the one choosing to follow it, right? We as an audience, it's almost asking the same thing of us, because we've been invested in these people. We were enjoying when they were misbehaving. and now the chickens have come home to roost and everybody's depressed. It's like, well, and they're like, well, yeah, this is what you asked for. And honestly, in that line of thinking, especially looking through the eyes of, or through the lens of Jean, this episode is very Ozymandias to me. Like, it's really giving Ozymandias vibes, because
what way?
You had, like, in Jean's case, he had everything, or at least he had managed to get away fairly seamlessly, right? And then after that call with Kim, he just decides to start wilding out. And I don't know if he does that because he's like, well, she's probably going to turn herself in maybe what I deserve is to just mess up anyway. Or maybe he thought, well, there's no point in me living in squalor because, like, what am I living for at this point? That type of thing. It could be any of the above, honestly. But I remember when he was at the house of the guy with cancer, right? And he could have gone, but he decides not to go. He goes upstairs, he starts smoking a cigar, he starts like looking through his stuff, drinking, and that's the reason all that stuff goes down. Because I remember when I was looking at the like the police car, and in my head I was like, I know these guys don't care about this taxi in front of them. I know for a fact they
They're
don't.
arguing about their fish taco.
But honestly, but Jeff is such an amateur, right? Like he decides to go and then he forgets that snow is slippery, and then he just rear ends somebody. And
Okay,
I didn't expect it to go down that chaotically,
so
but
I have a
the way everything comes crashing down is so Ozymandias.
I have a question for you. Based off what you've just said, I think I know where you fall on this. But so, do you believe that what happens with Jeff and the police kind of thing was an error? Like he actually like fucked up?
Okay, you're asking whether this is Jeff messing up or Jeff trying to get Saul caught?
So I read So I read a review that described what happened as Jeff selflessly getting the attention of the police so that Saul could get away.
Oh, yeah. So at first I thought he messed up. Then the more I thought about it, I felt like he felt like maybe he had to do that just so he could go.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, there are other ways to get at the attention of the police. In my mind, that house also had other doors. Like literally,
why didn't you just walk into the cab? Like I ordered a cab. Like
yeah, he could have been the one who ordered the cab and gone inside. Like I feel like he didn't have to do all of that, especially since he kind of got injured. Like he had to crawl out of that wreckage.
Yeah,
So
I'm choosing to believe that Jeff was stupid and messed up until the show proves me wrong. That's what I'm choosing to believe because that just like first of all, that was just again directing just brilliant. Just part that we saw from behind. Just
the best part was the look on the policemen's like faces.
They were like,
when they're like, "Oh my god!"
And then like one of them
we can't catch a break.
One of them licks his fingers. The other one, it's just like, okay, what idiot do we have to deal with right now? It was incredible. I loved it so much
because they're like, why? Honestly, why? Like this, there's no explanation for this from their point of view. Why would this happen?
Okay, so my biggest take from watching Jeff stroke Saul stroke Jean this episode, and I want to obviously hear your thoughts about it, is, and I don't want to glorify Jimmy McGill, because he was also kind of a bad person. We know what he did to Howard and everything, but so I don't want to make him holier than thou. But I almost felt like he was trying to fight from within Saul and Jean to get them caught. Like, it almost felt like it was the Jimmy inside them was like almost trying to fight to come out to the surface, right? I mean, I think going back into the house is almost like Jean is asking to be caught. Like, he's almost like, okay, it's almost his version of Kim going back to Albuquerque. Like, his own is like, okay, I'm not going to make it easy for you and write my confession, but like, I'm going to make it easy for you to catch me, if that makes sense. And so it was, I could just see this kind of fighting between like maybe Jimmy on one side and Saul and Jean on the other side. And actually, before we even get to that, so a friend of mine reached out last week. He messaged me last week. Shout out to Matt if he's listening. And he was like, obviously last week was kind of the biggest flashback to Saul time. He was like, oh, how he always hated Saul, like even in Breaking Bad time, but he loves Jimmy.
Yeah.
And obviously that's because we've spent 5 years watching Jimmy, and Jimmy came from being like a nothing to like a sympathetic character or whatever. We never really hated him. But then watching it, I'm just like, every Saul scene is just repugnant. And I didn't realize how disgusting he was while watching Breaking Bad. And then it's because Walt was there, and Walt was worse, and Tuco was worse, and everybody was like, I was just like,
he was comic relief in comparison to all those guys.
I was like, oh my god, you are a terrible person. Like, I'm even forgetting the things like
he's just choosing to be sleazy.
Yeah, forgetting the sleazy jokes about how his acupuncturist fixes everything. Let's even forget that. It's just like the way he talks to Kim. You're like, that is not Jimmy. I know that's not Jimmy. That's like, you're putting on the front. You're putting on the Saul act. And I was like, oh.
Yeah, which is why she said, that's not the guy I used to know. That's just not the guy she knew.
And I think, again, like they said, like they promised us to change how we watch Breaking Bad, right? It's not just a comic relief lawyer. It's a guy who's just really disgusting, but putting on that disgusting act because that's not who he really is, right? I was like, oh, this is I don't like this. I need Kim to leave this room. I don't like her being in this room right now. It's too much.
Or maybe like Walt, it kind of is who he is, like just deep down.
But that's the
Because
thing,
I thought about
though.
what you said regarding, Jimmy kind of fighting from within
Mm-hmm.
to ensure that he gets caught, and that's very deep. I can kind of understand that, but the one issue I have with that is Jimmy himself was never one for confession either. Like he also was always trying to take the easy way out. In a sense, Saul is like Jimmy dialed to 12,
Mm-hmm.
and Gene is essentially Jimmy with his tail tucked between his legs after having been Saul. So, in a sense, these guys are all some version of Jimmy, but they're all Jimmy coping through something else. You can say that Saul is Jimmy coping through having lost Kim, who was like the last thing keeping him from being fully Saul. Like,
Yeah.
clearly, she was the last vestige of humanity. And I don't know why he's so angry with her. Is it because she left, or is it partly because she didn't tell him about Lalo? But is
Mm-hmm.
that really enough to completely break that relationship? I wonder what his thought process is there.
Oh, I
But
think he needed to break that
but yeah,
relationship to cope. He couldn't. He
yeah,
hasn't processed that. Obviously, yeah, he couldn't
Saul is a
process.
coping
Yeah,
mechanism.
he couldn't process the breakup as Jimmy, so he just became Saul, and he became Saul completely. But and I don't want, like I said, I don't want to glorify Jimmy, but I just feel like because we spend so much time with Jimmy, you have to believe that Jimmy.
He's capable of better.
Yeah, you have to believe that Jimmy
Yeah.
wasn't like Saul wasn't in Jimmy. Jimmy
Hmm.
became Saul. I'm like Heisenberg wasn't
Yeah.
Walter White. Right, he was
Yeah.
always
hundred
in Walter White.
percent.
Like even the way he spoke to his gray matter partners, you like that. He was always that was always there, right? But like
Yeah.
just like Jimmy created a character. But I think my biggest example, or rather reference for that whole Jimmy trying to fight from underneath is that final scene with Carol Burnett's Marion, which we can talk about now. I mean, we knew like I mean, that laptop was always gonna.
I was just thinking about that. The laptop, her waking up at night and seeing them. Even right at the end when he's like, final warning. Like right before we started this recording, I was thinking about how he said final warning, and I was just like, what was he
Yeah,
gonna
you're
do?
like, is he
Like
going to?
it was really giving Heisenberg vibes. That's one of the things that made me feel like this was an Ozymandias thing because bro, look at what you've become. And then he realizes that, and then he kind of allows her to turn him in.
So to me, that is the Jimmy in. Like because she says, "Well, I trusted you," and I
Yeah.
was clawing. I feel like that's clawing at the whole
It
the
breaks his facade for just a moment.
yeah, the sincerity, almost like puppy doggishness of like Jimmy wanting to
Yeah.
be liked and wanting to be trusted, and then that breaks him down because
Uh,
what? So it's like that's why I'm thinking is like Jimmy, like because
and Jeff is
I
gonna
don't
stay
think
in
he ever
jail.
thought about killing her.
Yeah.
I think he always wanted to tie her
Even
up,
though
but
he
the
was,
way
yeah.
yes, the way he held it up was
I
very
was hoping he wasn't
threatening.
planning to strangle her. Yeah.
But even at that, even when he grabs the life alert button or whatever, like that's her neck. Because I was thinking, even if he pulls that, like if he pulls that off her neck, like that is going to really hurt her. She's an old
Yeah.
woman. So
Yeah.
yeah, like
He's very
whichever
old.
way he's threatening physical violence on this woman, even just to tie her up, this old woman, I'm just like, even the moment he pulls the thing off from the wall, that is not. We've not seen that. That's not Jimmy. That's not Saul. That's like if maybe we can argue that Gene is the worst of all of them. So like that's like
I think Gene is if he's the worst, it's in a dormant way. He's kind of like I said, he has his tail tucked between his legs. He's trying
but do you
to
still think he still has
to
his
cope.
tail?
He's hiding.
I think after that phone call, he doesn't have the tail tucked under his legs anymore.
Maybe the tail has been cut now, but
Yeah.
I think sort of he's kind of been unleashed in a sense. It's like now it's like when you corner an animal, right? And then he
Mm-hmm.
realizes there's nowhere else to go and there's nothing left to lose. It lashes out, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
literally how feral animals deal. So maybe that tail isn't tucked there anymore, and Gene is essentially, you know, Gene is Jimmy who has gone through being Saul and learned from Walter.
Exactly.
So I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
one of the ways that they said we'd see Breaking Bad differently is I feel like now if we watch Jimmy, I guess if we watch Saul interacting with Walter, we're not going to see things a little bit differently because we'll see things that he might be picking up from him because just that look, like even the glasses and the mustache and just everything, and the way he was talking to her, I was like, wow, this you could literally bring Bryan Cranston and substitute, and then it would feel very similar.
Yeah, but he's on the run now. He's on the run now. Next week's
Because
episode,
now they know where to look for him,
they know where
bro,
to look.
and
Well,
that's
I
just
mean,
so
hopefully
sad.
he can. Well, not hopefully. Isn't this another thing? So I realized how out I was on Gene because the moment he goes back into the house, I didn't care. I wasn't even like, get out, get out. Like, you're wasting too much time. Normally, when that happens, I'm like, what are you doing? Get out. You're tempting fate. I was just like, I hope they catch you.
Wow.
I was like, I don't even care anymore. Like, I don't know how, I don't know, man. These writers and actors are just so good. How have they, 5 weeks ago, Ebube, people were like, yeah, the final episode will be Gene finding Kim in Nebraska and then they will live their life. That's what people wanted. That's what people expected.
They didn't know what show they are watching.
No, but I don't even mean that to like this. I just mean like that's where people's mindsets were. Like people liked these characters. Like, but no,
Yeah,
I don't want
the
Gene
best
to
for
have.
them.
I don't want Gene to have a happy ending now. Why would I want that?
And that's more evidence of the whole Ozymandias thing I'm talking about. Because by the time we reached that point, I don't think anybody really wanted Walter to be okay.
Yeah, I mean, one would argue that they should have had that feeling from season 4, but that's a different thing.
Yeah, that's a whole new thing.
Or even season 3, when he tried to poison the child.
I think that was like season 4, maybe.
When did Jane die? 3, right? Or was it 4?
Season 3 or 4, that was season 3.
So yeah, so from then we should already be like anti-Walter. Yeah, no, I mean,
oh my goodness,
I'm interested to see what happens next week. I think we discussed it. Was it last week that we were like, yeah, this show is firmly not giving us a happy ending for Gene. I think that's just been what they call it, emphasized this week. So I'm interested to see what goes on if we do see Kim again. Surprisingly though, I hadn't put this up for the last few weeks because I just felt like it wouldn't be, but now it's looking like we've seen the last of Gus.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a great scene for it to be his final scene in the Gilligan verse. It's the scene with Reed Diamond, Sommelier, and obviously, I mean, I guess Mike is someone we can see again, but it's possible that we've seen the last of him as well. But yeah, I'm excited for the finale. It's going to be the finale of this episode. I think you and I were talking about it just before we finished. Like I'm excited for the finale as like from a television point of view and everything, but I'm not jumping excited because I'm not enthused. Maybe like that's the word. I don't have enthusiasm because like it's just so dark. And I don't understand how it's happened in the last 4. Like, the episode after Howard died, I was still excited. The episode after, like, dark things were happening, I was still excited. But now I'm just like, oh, this is painful. This is so depressing.
Because all we have left is crumbs. Like, we literally have the vestiges of what used to be, like, humans that we cared about. Now we don't know these people anymore. And I think that's what the writers are trying to teach us. Like, the person that Gene has to be now is somebody who is living so heavily on defense. And that's why it really bugged us when he went on offense again. He's like, oh, what did you get my son into? Nothing he didn't ask for. Well, is that the whole truth? So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're right. I think now I see why like Peter Gould was like, we do make some choices that fans might not like, which, I mean, I'm loving it. I think you're also loving these last 3 episodes.
100%.
But it's a turn. It's a dark turn, and like, it's possible. I feel like lots of Better Call Saul fans at this point, like, we're all on board. Like, we're on board whatever the show is going to give us, right? So, but I can see how some fans might be like, oh, what is this? This is not the show I wanted to watch. Jimmy and Kim forever, or whatever. But
I don't know, but people who react like that are always a little bit like interesting to me because you're being given a story here. Like, there are people who are telling the story. You can't just be like, oh, that's not what I thought would happen. Screw you. Like, that's not what this person would do. It's like, well, I mean, you're not in charge of this situation. It's like people who are like, oh, if like after I distinctly remember after the Red Wedding, right? After the Red Wedding, people were so upset, right? They were like, oh, I'm never watching again. They all came back, first of all, but they were like, I'm never watching again. And then they were like, if they ever do anything to Daenerys, I'm never, ever, ever watching this show again. Those same people are like, kill her 5 seasons later. Come on now. Let's be real here. You're not in charge of this situation. You need to accept that. Gene is not in charge of this. He's not even in control of the situation anymore. Kim is not in control. Nobody is in control. the Gilligan verse people are in control, and we are at their mercy. So
Yeah.
just watch the final episode in peace
I mean,
and
my
enjoy
thing is
what has been given to you.
always judging on what it is. I just love how you're able to connect everything either it's bad writing or fan perception or whatever back to Game of Thrones. I can't wait to hear you talk about House of the Dragon.
That would be interesting, yeah.
So a few Easter eggs. So obviously in Nippy, the first black and white Gene episode, we got the Schnauz
There
Farms.
wasn't Nippy, was there?
No, there wasn't. The Schnauz Farms cheese. That's obviously a shout out to Thomas Schnauz, who's writer, director, producer on the show. Last week we got Cherkis. Rather, we got Cherkis. It was on like one of the Kevin Sussman's characters. Like, no, it wasn't his character. I think it was the other character. The first guy that is conned. One of his like banking investment was called like Cherkis Investment or whatever. That's obviously a shout out to Cherkis, who writes and produces the show. Now, what I didn't notice, I saw it on Twitter, was like Kevin Sussman's character has in this episode exactly $737,612.62. Now, $737,000 is the exact amount Walter said he needed at the start of Breaking Bad.
And they're giving it to another guy who has cancer. That is wild. What is with these guys, man?
602 is for season 6, episode 12. And then 62 cents is the 62nd episode. This is the 62nd episode. Why can't I get that word out? That's weird.
62nd episode. You need to drink your water and slow down.
This is the
62nd episode.
I can't say 62nd. This is so... What is going on?
Oh, you just did.
Yeah.
You just accepted that.
I'm not going to try it again because I want you to get it out. Anyway, speaking of that number, 6 and 2, this is like... The Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul are on the same level now because they both did 62. So, obviously next week, which means Vince Gilligan directed the... Say it for me. The 62nd...
That was the 62nd
episode of Breaking Bad and the 62nd episode of Better Call Saul.
Better Call Saul, yes.
I didn't think that would be the word that would trip me up this podcast. Anyways, but yeah, so next week, Saul goes ahead of Breaking Bad with its finale.
Yep.
Do you have any preview thoughts, anything going forward before we talk about it next week?
I'm wondering if it's going to be a situation of hiding or if it's going to be like an media res situation where we see Saul on the run and we pick up with high energy in black and white, like some type of film noir. I don't know. I think we'll see some kind of consequence. The question is whether he'll be arraigned or not. I mean, now that his name has been said and it's clear, like he starts by saying, to Marion, that you think that's me, it's not me. Then there it goes to, okay, let's talk about this. Yeah. You shouldn't have started with that's not me.
That was so dumb, I'm sorry.
Because honestly, the fact that it's you doesn't necessarily make you a criminal in this situation. You could have been like, yeah, that's me. I just wanted a new life.
Yeah.
All she was seeing was his ads. And I was even wondering, why does con man ring him up? Jimmy, like Slipping Jimmy was a con man. Saul Goodman was an attorney. So
I was thinking about that.
People really see him as a con man. Like,
yeah, but I guess
he didn't technically con anybody over there. Like he just represented bad people.
But I guess this is post Breaking Bad. This is post like Gustavo Fring, Walter White, or maybe they like kind of put him in that. He's not a drug dealer. Is he a con man? Yeah. I don't know.
Well, anyway, I just think that's interesting.
Just let that go. Just let it go. Let it go.
Yeah. It's wild. I think that like because of everything we've seen here, he's going to kind of get into defense mode again. I don't know if he's going to be lashing out. I don't know if he's going to be trying to hide. I don't know if he's going to try and reach out to Kim again. And we also don't know who will come for him exactly. Like, will it be FBI? Will it be DEA? Will it be the local police because of Jeff? Like, basically everybody's looking for him.
Yeah. So are we taking off death off the table?
Well, it would be very symmetrical to Breaking Bad if they made him die looking like Walter.
I don't think he does.
So I don't think I hope it's not death. I'm not sure what it will be, but I'm leaning towards no death, but yes, punishment.
Oh, I think, like I said, there's going to be a punishment. This is not a good story. This is not a good ending.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's death. I think
I'm leaning towards consequences without death. Let's put it that way.
Me too. Okay. So you guys, this is the Consequences Without Death podcast.
Basically, everything we talk about is consequences without death.
Anyway, look, next week we'll talk about the series finale, the universe finale. I don't think they're going to do enough spin-off or whatever. I'm pretty sure this is it. But yeah, Ebube, thank you. Thank you for this run. Then maybe after that, we can start preparing what we're going to do with House of the Dragon. We go from talking about genes, talking about dragons.
That's going to be very interesting.
Get you a podcast that can do both.
Right.
Anyways, Ebube, thank you very much for this, for coming back.
Thank you for having me.
And then we'll talk again next week on the finale. If you're still listening, thank you very much for listening. Please share this podcast episode with anyone that you know that watches Better Call Saul. Share this podcast with anyone that you know that watches TV. Well, like over the next few weeks, we're going to be covering quite a bunch of popular shows. So I hope you guys check that out. But for now, it's a massive thank you to Ebube. It's thank you to my regular host, Jibs, Chinedu, Ibuka. Thank you to everyone that is listening. And yeah, we'll be back next week talking about Saul, talking about industry, talking about House of the Dragon in a few weeks. But for now, join me next week when I'll be joined by Daniel Kaluuya. Bye, guys.